these residential streets in the Watts area of the city of Los Angeles. So this individual who's operating the vehicle, the black vehicle, is desperate to get away, driving in a very, very aggressive manner. We do have a lot of units there. We do have the helicopter overhead. They have a lot of units in that particular part of the city. There'll be a caravan of police vehicles. But what we have is a very, very dangerous situation. Again, possibly armed, which really increases the hazard for the officers as well as the general public. He will either crash. I don't know if they're going to go into a tracking mode in a situation like this where they know the individual is possibly armed, possibly 3 suspects, stolen vehicle, and other crimes involved in this particular fleeing situation. But fortunately, the roadway is light as far as traffic goes, but he's just negotiating back and forth in and out of residential streets. I don't know if he knows where he's going, but fortunately we don't have a lot of pedestrians or vehicles, but he's definitely going high speed in this residential area with a lot of driveways, residential park cars, etc. Extremely dangerous. And again, as you mentioned earlier, a number of pursuits in the last couple of days and a few tonight.
Yeah, Dennis, he just came close there to another vehicle. You know, L.A. is no stranger to pursuits. Alex commenting on how many we've had today alone. This one, like you pointed out, is at night. Those streets there wide open right there. People would ask, perhaps, can you bring this to close with a spike strip? At that rate of speed, could you even use a spike strip if you knew, like, the path of this suspect?
They could. They could use a spike strip. It's unlike when they use the pursuit intervention technique, the pit maneuver. The spike strip can blow out the tire. The car will not lose control, but it will then bring it to a stop. But this individual is driving excessive speed in this residential area. But a spike strip, if they can pre-deploy, but he's making a lot of right and left turns going down these residential streets. So it'd be difficult to pre-deploy. Again, the officers would have to pre-deploy. They're at the curb, throw the spike strip out just before he arrives, puncture the tires. Then, in this particular case, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a foot pursuit or if they just abandon the vehicle. That would not surprise me if they abandon. If there's got 3 suspects in the vehicle getting these residential areas and just bail from that car and take off, because they know they're hot, they know they're wanted, and there's no question that they're driving excessive speed trying to flee the officers. Heavy residential area in that area of Los Angeles and the Watts community. So I used to work in that area. There's a lot of narrow residential streets, and fortunately at night, not a lot of pedestrians on the roadway.
Talk about the fact that when you often see people in residential neighborhoods literally driving in circles, which is what's happening right now, how often they may, be familiar with that neighborhood they're driving in.
Well, there we go. Somebody bailed.
They did bail. At least it looked like a door was open for sure.
Yeah, there was a door that opened, the rear door on the driver's side. I don't know if it's a 4-door SUV. It should be a 4. Yeah, there we go. There's the door open again. They're either throwing things out or something, but that door has been opened twice so far. Again, if they have evidence in the car, trying to dispose of the evidence, fortunately there's a number of units that would be able to apprehend that. Now, alongside a police car, that's a plane, one of our plane vehicles, a dual-purpose vehicle that he came alongside. I'm sorry, the question that you had again?
About the fact that when drivers drive in circles around one neighborhood, how often they're familiar with that neighborhood.
Well, sometimes they are. They're looking for a place to bail. That happens. Or they're just not familiar, and they're just driving aimlessly trying to elude. But when you have a helicopter overhead, especially in a residential community, you're not going to be able to get too far. And we got a number of ground units behind.
The doors are open. We see one suspect running in one direction, two suspects running in different directions, all 3 now going in different directions on foot, going into residences. This is very dangerous for people that live in this neighborhood. These people who could be armed and dangerous, potentially heading into their homes or their apartment buildings. And we'll see if LAPD officers go on foot to try to find them.
Dennis, the question for you is, do they try to go for the driver?
Well, they want to get the driver, but they also want to get those passengers. Fortunately, we have enough units. They'll lock down this area, bring in K-9. The K-9 will help. But I caution the residents in that area, if they're watching, to lock their doors, secure their residence. These people come knocking, call 911. If they run through your yard, call 911. But you'll see a number of officers there going into the area to try and apprehend. They'll lock off the area. They'll block off the area. They'll coordinate that with the air unit. and getting those ground units in and hopefully contain those individuals and immediately call for the canine. Those dogs are very, very effective. They may duck into a home, and somebody may be sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden the window's broken and they're invading someone's home, someone's privacy. So there's all kinds of things that happen. This particular area of Watts, people need to be extremely cautious. Now that the vehicle did stop, now you got multiple suspects that bailed into residential area, and it would not be unlike them to break into a residence. They're not going to hide in the garage. They'll break into a residence and they'll take those people hostage if they do, elderly people, et cetera. So it gets really, really intense now. And again, they'll bring in a number of units to block this off. They want to contain them. Then they'll do a grid search within that area, house to house, through that area to hopefully apprehend these individuals. It's not uncommon where they flee on foot, and shortly the canine shows up and they get the scent and they apprehend him. So we hope that'll be the conclusion of this particular pursuit.
That's got to be an especially challenging situation when you have multiple suspects running in multiple directions. Exactly.
That's exactly what happened. There was one not that long ago. They had 4 suspects. They all bailed. I think 3 went one way, one the other way, and they ended up apprehending all 4 of them. So they have the technology, they have the resources, they have the personnel, they have the canine. In this particular case, they got the helicopter overhead, and the police department helicopter would work with the media helicopter if they spot the individuals. But when you're at night, people are in those homes. They may be in bed sleeping. All of a sudden they hear a crash, invading into their home by these suspects. Call 911 and protect yourself and your family, because this gets very, very critical right now. The apprehension of these individuals that are obviously hot pursuit from the crime and multiple crimes it could be. But now they're going to intensify that. Once they enter a home, then they're breaking into a home. That's burglary. If the intent is to injure someone or hurt someone or take them hostage, all kinds of possibilities that take place now, especially when they're armed. So the residents in that area need to be extremely cautious. And if they're in that area, hear a noise in their backyard, they hear something, call 911. It's very important to alert the police so these people can be apprehended, because they're hot, they're fleeing, and they've now invaded this residential neighborhood where you got a lot of fine people that are just minding their own business, and hopefully you'll apprehend it as quickly as possible. But again, they got to bring in the resources. They will immediately lock it down, and once they lock it down, then they'll go in for the search. And now you're searching at night. You've got cars parked. You've got motorhomes. You got all types of cover. So it becomes extremely hazardous for the officers.
Yeah, for sure.
They will do that. They will do what they need to do to search this area. This area will be locked down for a long period of time until they apprehend these individuals. But as soon as you can put that together and you lock down that area, 1 block, 2 blocks, whatever the case may be, you contain that. And as we see where they're fleeing into these residential areas, someone's living in that home. They're not going into a business. They're not going into a parking structure. Mm-hmm. They're going into a residential area, heavy residential community. Extremely hazardous for the residents in that area now.
Well, hopefully.
Is somebody out? Who is that? Did they get one of them walking out? Are they walking out with their hands up?
Hands up?
Hands
yeah.
up?
Two
Are these
people
2 of the
surrendering
suspects?
right there.
So 2 of the suspects are now giving up. I wonder what prompted that.
All right, so our location here to let our viewers know is Banderas Street and Firestone in the Florence area. We saw those 2 suspects take off down that alleyway between those homes there, and the other suspect went kind of behind behind these vehicles here. So it's interesting to see if the other suspect has also been apprehended or where the search is for that one. But these 2 here, that night sun overhead followed the direction of these suspects. They clearly didn't get too far.
And those helicopters are so valuable, so important. In a case like this, nighttime, they've got devices on that, not only the light, but they have other devices where they can track. They employ that. They can utilize that to assist the ground officers. They work very, very successful. In this particular case, you see 2 of the 3 apprehended, and quickly, by the way. So we want to commend the officers for that. And they'll have a lot of resources in there. They'll keep the area locked down, the block contained until they can find all the suspects and apprehend them. But now apparently there's 1 all by himself, and the other 2 are now in custody. So that reduces the hazard for those individuals doing any harm to the community, but they still have 1 outstanding. Then they'll identify the evidence in the car and all that takes place. Fortunately, the car wasn't involved in the collision. And one thing we got to remember...
Wait. We see people running here.
Looks like some movement here in between the area where the third suspect ran, the other side of the house there, the home's there.
Is this person coming out, or are these just people that happen to live nearby?
Yeah, it's hard to tell from this shot.
Yeah, you got residents that are coming out, and they shouldn't come out. They should stay in their residence. It's a very tense situation for the officers at night. Residents stay in your home and don't come out. You just create a hazard for yourself. You don't need to have that confrontation with the police. They're looking for the individuals who committed this crime or crimes.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break. We're glad to see that those 2 suspects were taken into custody. We're going to keep Sky Fox overhead and bring you any new developments when we get them. Back with more right after this.